Welcome back to the Situation Room after the false flag operation by India. We'll be talking about the ramifications of course, the way we are looking at the water aggression by India preceding the termination of the Indus Water Treaty. I have with me Barrister Nida Salam, who's a human rights expert. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar, who's a foreign affairs expert, and Shahryar Khan, who is a security analyst. Thank you so much for being with us today. Nida, overall, of course, we've seen the Prime Minister reiterate, of course, Pakistan's strong condemnation of what's happened. We've also seen, us talk about a neutral, transparent, credible investigation into what's happened, by India, which is an open act of aggression as far as termination of this treaty is concerned. Overall, how do you see the situation at this time? Because of course we're looking at 7 to 8 feet of water that's risen in River Jhelum also. So water aggression is also there by India at this time.
Mahrukh, on behalf of the people of Pakistan, we extend our deepest condolences to the families of Pahalgam attack. In reality, the Indian government, their Prime Minister, amalgamated with their agencies. They are directly, unlawfully involved in this false flag operation. There are reasons behind that. The vision from the other side was very clear that the Kashmir is a jugular vein of Pakistan. And no more blame game. After the abrogation of Article 370, the special status of Kashmir, India was in breach of all international commitments, laws, obligations, and United Nations chartered. Unfortunately, India has never ever provided even a single evidence. Let's go back to the past. Pulwama. Their own Jammu and Kashmir governor, let me take his name, Satya Paul Malik, he confessed in their press that Pulwama was intelligence lapse and security lapse, and he told his press that the Indian Prime Minister forced him to remain silent. Uri, Pathankot, you name it. Why India failed to provide even a single evidence in all that incidents? Because their Prime Minister benefited in the elections. Mahrukh, this time very louder, very clearer. For the sensible people across the border, tell your impractical and fatuous Prime Minister that you will initiate this time, you will proceed, we will finish it, the world will experience it, and your generations will remember it.
Right.
Because Pakistan has all the capacities, capabilities, and potential to tackle any misadventure. Let me just add for your audience, from missiles, Gauri, Ghaznavi, to jets, GF-17 Thunders, they have already experienced during the last misadventure. Mahrukh, last time only the fantastic tea was served, but I would like to assure them this time, the era is different, the vision is entirely different, and the preparation is entirely different. Before the tea, chicken cry and mutton cry will be served and you will not be able to digest it. So rather than to experiment any adventure, take sensible steps and act like a sensible nation.
When
and
we
the
talk
state.
about sensible steps that Nida is talking about, Dr. Waqas, in terms of what's happened, if we look at the trajectory of the events that have followed, first, of course, this false flag operation happens, then, within 10 hours, we see suspension of the Indus Water Treaty. We're also looking at the locals themselves, which are not corroborating the events the way that they've been put forward by the state of India. In terms of what do you expect now? Are you expecting, the role of Indian media has always, unfortunately, one has to say, is just condemnable in all this debacle that has ensued.
Thank you, Mahrukh, for having me on your show. I guess to answer this question, we need to see about the trajectory of BJP's politics, particularly within India.
Yeah.
If you see the overall trajectory of their politics over the period of time, the sort of hatred and division within the communities, the way it has, polarized the society. And now when it comes to the measures, this is not the only the polarization of communities, but this is done through some legal measures like very recently you have seen that the bill like Waqf bill, and then you know, there was citizen bills and all that. So this was quite directed towards one community, particularly minorities over there. So now once the politics thrives on division and, you know, sort of divisive politics in the country, then when you talk about the media, sadly, if you see the spaces for the center voices, the civil liberties and all that has almost squeezed within the BJP's regime over there. That's why you see it's a very deep down corporate interest. So when your politics and economic interest, and then you sort of have ideological politics, you want to dominate, get the domination of one particular religion, you know, there is sort of a blend of it, then it gets very difficult to handle. It further complicates a diverse society. Coming back to this issue, I mean, as you have mentioned, all the people, particularly within Pakistan, the government and the civil society, and all people have condemned, not only condemned, but Pakistan today came up with one very, I guess, sensible step of offering, you know, sort of a support in that investigation, which is, I guess, very logical.
If we look at all the events, I mean, you know, even if we look at, you know, just if we step back and see the way that Pakistan has reacted, I don't think that anyone can find fault in what we've done. If we look at, you know, point one.
True. It's very mature.
Yeah,
I say the sort of, I mean, the responses are very mature, and even today.
we've always been saying that, you know, let's be rational about this. Let's look at this. Let's, you know, in terms of the past also, there's a plethora of evidence that's against India.
True, and even I mean, see, we had that Balochistan incident few days ago. I mean, there was a deep down, and there is a very open, you know, connectivity and links, and Pakistan has been talking on that, but Pakistan never directly mentioned India or, you know, sort of taken that sort of strict measures.
Yeah.
But here in this case, this situation is different. Pakistan is offering full support, which is very encouraging.
No, but and even the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty is clearly punitive.
See, that's where I want to come. When you talk about these such actions, the problem right now over there is that you sort of built it a cult over there. It is very difficult. I mean, within 1 or 2 hours of the incident, what happened in the media started blaming, and then your anchor person, and then your, you know, rest of the economic and other giants have created an environment, you know, pro-war, and then you are creating further dividing communities. If you see, I mean, there's a repeated now backlash and sort of they are targeting the particularly Muslim community within Kashmir. That is the politics which has, you know, taken back that entire region far from the peace. If you see over the period of time,
I think that's very, very apt what you're saying, taken back the entire region. Shahryar, overall, you know, when we talk about the way Pakistan and India has reacted, when we talk about the way that, you know, our relationship with India is concerned, in terms of, you know, we keep on going back to this, and Pakistan has consistently tried to maintain neighborly relations with them, in spite of the involvement that we've seen overall. If we look at the Pulwama attack and a plethora of other attacks before that also, involvement in, you know, cases in point, Kulbhushan Yadav is not very old. If we look at the way the interference that certainly comes from that side. But how do you react to this kind of an open, you know, act of aggression? Even in the face of that, we've been rational. Even in the face of that, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif calls for an open inquiry that Pakistan is willing to participate in. So you think that the world is watching where, you know, all of this is coming from, really?
Mahrukh, the world is definitely watching. And if you see how the Indian media or the Indian government has taken this situation, there was a need of a regional dialogue which Pakistan would have supported, because Pakistan in itself is a victim of terrorism. In the last 3 or 4 years, terrorism has returned to Pakistan due to various reasons, and Pakistan has used all international forums to basically present its case.
Yeah.
And everyone knows. In the last 4 to 5 years, we also know the track record of India and what India has been doing in Canada, what India has been doing in the US, and all of those extrajudicial killings that even the government of Canada, their Prime Minister, has openly
acknowledged and he's
taken to task. And this information, this extrajudicial killing of 6 separatist leaders conducted on Canadian soil, this intelligence was provided by the US. After that, a month after that, the US also presented evidence that another killing was foiled on the US soil. Again, the US administration, FBI, basically took name of that diplomatic official that was involved in this situation. Other than that, a lot of like Indian government officials are there present on record in which they have admitted to at least 20 killings on Pakistani soil as well, and Pakistan has been presenting its case on all international forums over and over again that India is basically transgressing and now is a very belligerent state.
But the face of India, the way that it is exposed itself, one has to acknowledge perhaps, you know, that this is another debacle that's really exposed them. I want to take Nida on this also. Nida, don't you think that they're really losing this war of narratives? They're losing on the chessboard of the reality versus the kind of false narrative that they've tried to put forward. And you know, the way that, because of the reaction that we've seen, you know, if you look at point 1 to where we are at this time, we've reacted very rationally, we've reacted very measurably. We've reacted to, you know, by saying very calmly that now, you know, we are proud of the way that the Prime Minister said that, you know, we are willing to participate in any independent inquiry. That itself exonerates us. So are they, you know, are they not exposing themselves in front of the world yet again?
Mahrukh, I would like to agree with you. The world is asking questions for Modi, his cabinet, incompetent, negligent cabinet, and that questions are why India is not allowing independent UN experts, why India is not welcoming them, what India is afraid of. Secondly, the emotional, insane young generation should hold the Prime Minister accountable for his incompetence and security lapse. Another very important question which the world is asking, what India is doing in Afghanistan, as India is very famous in sending their spies to the foreign soil. We have seen in Canada, we have seen in United States of America, where the FBI Director Christopher Wray stated that we will not let anybody to play with our nationals and we will protect their constitutional rights. The opposition leader, Rahul Gandhi, should ask from their Prime Minister that why his Prime Minister is wasting money of their poor taxpayers on spying on international soil. Neighbors used to tell the international world that how India used to destabilize. Kulbhushan Yadav is the example. Mahrukh, you know what? Did the Indian Prime Minister ever think that during his era, why insurgencies has increased? Because of his fascism, because of his radicalization, because of his discrimination on the grounds of religion, Deen, Dharam, Mangal Sutra, Mandir and Masjid, and because of his wrong policies, you name it, Khalistan movement, Sikh community, Manipur, how we can forget that, Muslim community. So Pakistan as a state was always tolerant, Pakistan always believed on dialogue. The question here is that what India is doing in Afghanistan, and this is a very worrying part for the Western world, as India is very famous in sending spies to the foreign soil. Is India again engaged in exporting and expanding terrorism to the foreign soil under the umbrella of their Prime Minister and their agencies? So West should ask these questions.
Right, Nida, let me come back to you. We've also been joined by Javed Jadoon sahab, who's a senior analyst. Javed sahab, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Mahrukh.
Javed sahab, we've spoken from time to time on the way that India has, you know, perpetrated terrorism and created unnecessary at times, you know, atmosphere of tension in our region. The situation at this time, the way that the social media has been used, the way that the social media has been used to put up a false narrative by India, let's talk about that. What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you very much, Mahrukh. I think we need to understand why this false flag operation was carried out in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Primarily, it is because the BJP government is really becoming a very fast, unpopular government. And the last elections, they wanted to cross the 400 marks because they always said, Modi always said that this time they will cross the mark of 400 seats in Lok Sabha, but ultimately they ended up with 237, and they had to form a coalition government with the help of the allies. A second challenge which Modi is facing in India is a very serious divide between the southern states and the Hindi belt. The 5 southern states are challenging the domination of the Hindi belt, and because they are resource rich as well, they really don't like the Hindi belt domination. And secondly, the language and the culture issue as well. So the third important factor which contributed in carrying out this false flag operation was the presence of the US Vice President J.D. Vance in India, along with his wife, who is an Indian American. And thirdly and fourthly, and most importantly, if you remember, President Trump in his first address to the Congress praised Pakistan's role in the fight against terrorism, and he talked about the key role Pakistan played in the fight against terror. And I think it didn't go well with the leadership.
Right, fair enough. We'll be taking a short azan break, after which we'll come back to talk more about what's happening as far as India's unilateral and clearly aggressive actions. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's talk about where, the kind of aggression that we are looking at, the kind of irresponsible actions that are coming from across the border, and of course, the fact that it is creating tension in the area and can have potential ramifications overall. Dr. Waqas, like we were earlier talking about, do you think, it's an open secret, we all know that India itself is having problems with its own military hardware. There are so many issues that they are facing as far as their army is concerned, their military hardware is concerned, there are issues there. In terms of what their internal situation is, of course, they are belligerent, they try to portray an image of that, the fact that, they can take on anything. But do you think internally they themselves are, prepared for this kind of an adventure themselves?
See, I mean, if you see the sort of behavior of BJP's government towards neighbors, and particularly countries like Pakistan, there's one very clear message that they've been trying to sort of an approach which is, you can call it, they're trying to bullying their neighbors, particularly when it comes to Pakistan. So in international forums, local and other, because sadly Pakistan is a very major factor in their elections. I mean, you have seen in Pakistan that India factor is not in elections narrative and all that, but Pakistan has been one of the, criticizing Pakistan, bashing, that has been a very key factor, particularly when it comes to their elections. So you need to understand the political context of that, the way they are trying to use. The governments like this, I mean, devoid of what would be the consequences, they're very much directed towards their own political constituency that they have, so they want to keep them intact. I mean, in past you have seen the effort, I mean, the sort of their skirmishes with China, they try to prove their own narrative, try to build that, but it didn't work. Simultaneously here also.
This kind of an adventure could be targeting their own, their own internal voter base or lack of popularity.
So I tell you one thing, I mean, that's where I see some hope that when you try to sort of create an environment where there is no dissent, particularly countries like India, which is quite diverse, but right now if you see, it's a quite control of corporate media, and particularly they call them the Godi media generally. Yeah. So when this sort of things happen, it's still very, very challenging for the center voices over there to to raise and to question. But now I guess there could be some opportunity where the center voices, and particularly if there is some free media and independent journalists starting asking questions about 2-3 things, particularly that the way this entire thing happened. I mean, there is now, we have read some reports that there was some information, prior information about this, and there was a post of CRPF and that was removed and all that. I mean, people will start and should ask questions. It's the choice of a government. I mean, if there's 2 choices. One is to deflect this political pressure on your so-called opponent, whatever you think, and have a political gain. And the other is just you look towards the internal accountability. That is more moralistic in nature, but that's difficult in this current regime.
It's
that they will
also not very in with the hindutva politics.
Particularly for this party, it's I mean, something not a precedent to look internally and hold people accountable. But I see one thing. I mean, this raises a question, particularly the treatment and of particularly this government towards the entire region of Jammu and Kashmir. You need to understand that what you call the normalcy might not be a normalcy the way you want to portray. I mean, normalcy in a sense that if you have denied people of their land, of their particularly like 35A, their state subject rule, and then you have the freedom of information thing that you have you have clamped down on the media, that becomes like a very sort of Sarkari media, and then you sort of have no civic spaces or civil society space, and then you try to build the economic thing and you say this is a normalcy. They need to think that this is not a normalcy thing. I mean, a society like Kashmir, particularly Jammu and Kashmir, having that intense conflict, going on from decades. I mean, you need to have some rational approach to deal with that. So I guess there will always be questions, and there will be now questions within their society, that is that entire treatment of the region, the way you have dealt with the people, is this the right thing? Because at the end of the day, for sustainable peace, you need to have some sustainable concrete actions, and those should be just and having some democratic sense.
Fair enough. Let me go to Shahryar on this. Shahryar, there is, as far as Pakistan's stance on our sovereignty is concerned, our water security is concerned, there is, little doubt that we are, of course, ready to defend ourselves, and we are, but as a rational state that wants peace in the region, we have been calling out for there to be some kind of rationality to this. But this debacle, the way that it has happened, do you think that India is cognizant of the fact that it can get out of control for them?
Mahrukh, India, since a very long time now, ever since this RSS Hindu writing Hindutva clan has taken power in India, rationality has taken a back seat, and India has now become an ideological state, not a rational state, and not even a secular state. I won't even call it India, I would call it Hindustan now, very clearly. Other than that, the most depressing thing, or something that concerned me a lot when I looked at the state narrative in India, was to paint this issue as an Hindu-Muslim issue. So that's like most of the narrative that is like emerging from Kashmir, which is a very dangerous precedent. And this is exactly one of the strategies that the Modi government has been employing to basically corner the Muslims of India. They are also trying to rewrite history. They're like coming up with reorganization. Right now there is no free media in India. I don't expect any rationality from their civil society or even journalists or news anchors as well. Because all of that
is being put forward by the state of India.
All the objectivity was removed, and it's like very aligned with the foreign policy or the state policy of India. All of their journalism and like most of their outlets as well. Other than that, in every sphere of economics, of corporations, of business, Muslims have been removed from the top places. They have been now subjected to move to the ghettos, even in the main cities of India. So ever since this like right-wing Hindutva politics has taken hold, I don't think there is any rationality there. Given the fact that over 250 million people in India are Muslims, probably more than the population of Pakistan, this is not a very rational decision to take, because this goes against the social cohesion even in India. India does not only consist of North India, there is South India.
But there's like also an acknowledgement within India that this is an Hindutva extremist style of politics, and the senior voices, of course, have said from time to time that it's having an extremely detrimental effect on their overall society. Whereas they continue to call themselves secular, they really are, showing that it's not a secular state at all. Let me include Javed Sahab in this also. Javed Sahab, have we not seen that for a while this is another step, it's a more extreme step, but it's certainly the same step in the direction of the kind of state that we've seen India become or aim to become under Modi. And under Modi, they are aiming to become a state which is extremist, which has Hindutva ideology, that is targeting all minorities, and this step is going to escalate, and has potentially escalated, apart from the kind of rationality, the kind of that we've seen, the sanity that Pakistan has reacted with. This could have potentially become, and can, still become, if India continues in its this kind of belligerence, it can become volatile, right?
I think you're very right, Mahrukh, that it has already become volatile, because the Sangh Parivar-led BJP government has literally divided India into two sections. One is the southern part of the country, and another is the northern part of the country. And now you look at what is happening in the northeastern states. Excuse me, where the independence movements are going on. The Naxalite movement is gaining momentum, and same is the case with the Khalistan movement. And India has gone all the way to assassinate Sikh leaders in Canada and in America as well. So it is the fear of disintegration, which is basically has become a driving force behind the Sangh Parivar to target Pakistan and then again garner support from the vulnerable sections of the society. Somebody was talking about that there are senior voices in India. I hardly see any senior voice in India right now because the media has been bought over or has been subjugated. There was the civil society, the voices of the civil society, the liberal voices have gone out of the scene. Nobody speaks against Sangh Parivar. Nobody is talking against the juggernaut of Hindutva.
Voices. When we talk about senior voices, we've seen for a while, the intelligentsia have spoken about this kind of extremism. But like you said, of course, they've died down because we've seen the state act against them also.
Mahrukh, there were senior voices. When I was working in New Delhi, I was there for 2 years between 2008 and 10. Then the Congress government was in power, and there was some kind of a semblance of secularism. And even that gone now. Even Congress doesn't have the very strong voice to go against the Hindutva juggernaut. And look at, there was only one independent television channel, NDTV. It was bought over by Adani, and it has become a mouthpiece of Sangh Parivar and Hindutva. Not a single channel, not a single newspaper which could be termed as an independent media outlet in India right now. The only one voice, and the voice of Hindutva and Sangh Parivar. Look what is happening as far as Pakistan is concerned. Pakistan has been made target because of the losing popularity and the declining popularity of Prime Minister Modi. And everybody, almost everybody. I mean, there was somebody was talking about the kind of weapon system they have. I don't believe most of their weapons are Soviet origin. More than 60% even today in service weapon systems are Soviet origin, obsolete. Only a couple of squadrons of Rafale fighter planes they bought from France. It is only the brinkmanship. They do not have the capacity or the will or the capability to take on to take on Pakistan. Look what happened in 2019. They tried to cross over and target Pakistan, and then when Pakistan retaliated, everybody saw. We shot down their fighter planes. They were embarrassed. And the media, the kind of a conversation going on over there, they tried to cover up that embarrassment as well. So I don't think we are facing any kind of a aggressive threat from India. It is only the rhetoric. They are trying to ratchet it up, and they are trying to garner support from inside India, and even they are trying to appeal. But one very interesting thing happened, Mahrukh, and that was the statement coming from President Donald Trump. He tried to distance away from the narrative being built by Prime Minister Modi against Pakistan, the narrative of Pakistan being responsible to carry out the terror attack in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. He said that I've got very close relations with both the countries, and let them, they can decide, and let them decide on their own what they want to decide. And when he talked about the Kashmir dispute, he said it's a very, very long dispute, unsettled issue between the two countries, and I understand. So I think one very important source of strength or support was President Donald Trump, and because it was happening in the aftermath of the visit of J.D. Vance to New Delhi. So I think the distancing of President Donald Trump is a serious blow to Prime Minister Modi's narrative against Pakistan. And I think now the stakes are against India, because what India is trying to do is going to endanger the peace of South Asia. It's not only South Asia, but they can threaten the peace of the entire globe, because these are two nuclear armed states with all the kind of delivery system they have. Pakistan has a nuclear triad. Pakistan can launch attack from sea-based platforms, for land-based platforms, and even the air-based platforms. So it is not an easy thing to do what India talks about as far as their playing for the gallery is concerned. So I strongly believe that it's only the rhetoric which is being ratcheted up against Pakistan.
Javed Sahab, do you think that, the kind of reaction that Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has said, let's do this, let's do a neutral, transparent and credible investigation. Pakistan is amenable to that. Do you see a rational response coming from there? And you know, of course, they will expose themselves further, and in the absence of it.
Mahrukh, they don't appreciate the voices of peace from Pakistan. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif was definitely talking sense. He wanted them to conduct any independent inquiry by independent observers as well. But let me share one thing, that Prime Minister Modi is not the person who listens to logic. He is the person who is basically illogical person who believes in showing off his own country's power and strength, and then ridiculing Pakistan because he believes that economically they are a stronger nation and militarily they are.
Right, fair enough. Nida, but is there, you know, showing of strength as, you know, Javed Sahab says, is it that, or it's also, you know, a lot of false bravado that is, you know, actually hiding the real situation in India, the real capability of their armed forces, the real issues that we've really seen, you know, that have come forward in terms of their equipment, in terms of their gear, in terms of, and you know, we know and we've established this many times that Pakistan's army is far superior to any other. So in that kind of an environment, you know, I think it's a lot of it is just the narrative, false narrative that they're trying to hide behind.
Mahrukh, I consider this just an empty threats. What power, I don't know, Javed Sahab is referring to. According to the UK Defence Journal, 68% of their defence equipments are vintage. As this era is a social media era, their soldiers are coming up on social media and their videos that we don't prefer to be in a war because we don't have a food to eat, we have families and we are surviving here in a very harsh conditions. So I consider all these as empty threats. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan Armed Forces are concerned, and their advanced technologies and equipments, even which you are not aware, I'm referring to India, that you are not even aware of that. So I would like to say that Pakistan was always, as a state, tolerant and always believed on dialogue. Better to come forward for the dialogue. Otherwise, we are ready, we are prepared.
Yes, of course, and you know, far superior in capacity and in, of course, capability also. Thank you so much for being with us, Barrister Nida Salam. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Waqas Ali Kausar. Thank you for your time, Shahryar Khan. Thank you for being with us, Javed Jadoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. Overall, of course, we have said that the Prime Minister has said that we are open to any neutral, transparent and credible international investigation into this, which itself exonerates Pakistan. We've also said that, you know, of course, you know, Pakistan is fully capable of defending itself against any external threat. Of course, the role of Indian media and social propaganda that we've seen, the media propaganda, as the COAS said, cannot distort historical facts. It cannot distort cases in point of where India's interference has come. It cannot distort where terrorism has perpetrated from that area. And of course, it cannot change history. India's attempt to do so again, to create strife, to create, you know, potentially this area and, you know, make it volatile, is something that the world is watching even as we speak. That said, of course, unless India steps back, Pakistan is capable and ready to defend itself in all forms and shapes. Thank you so much for joining us today on Thursday.